Hi, I'm Carl and welcome to Knack 3D Designs. In today's episode, we're going to go ahead and assemble our circuit board assembly and power supply tray. So let's get started. Alright, so in this installment, we're going to go ahead and wire up our switch and install our power supply and Duet board into our slide tray. So first thing we do is we need to go ahead and wire from the load and neutral side of the plug to the bottom two connectors on the switch, and then we'll run two leads from the top and from the top for the ground to our power supply. Now yes, I know technically coming in off of this switch I should be using green for ground, white for neutral, and black for hot, but I don't have all the right colors of wire, so we're just going to have to make sure we keep it straight. Alright, so we're going to go from our load, which is labeled by the L right there. It doesn't really matter as long as we just keep it the same on here. So we're going to plug that one on there. And then go from our ground for our neutral to the other pin on this side. Now we've got to do 3 more wires. We just need to gauge out our length. We're going to have this sitting here like this. We need to come from here to the ground, from here to the load, and from here to the neutral. So we don't need very much. So we're all set to put that into here. Now, as you can see here, there's these little tabs right there, and right there. Those need to lock in on here. You may have to pre-fit this a little bit, file those down just a little bit so they lock in nice and tight. And I want to make sure I've got it the right way. I do, because I want the switch on this side, plug over here. Yep. Right. Now you gotta snap that in, and then you need to push those tabs out, like so. Now it's locked in nice and tight and won't come out. So now we need to mount this in here. So we know this short one coming off the ground needs to go in that terminal right there. Red one goes to load. And then this one goes to our neutral. Now this power supply gets held in place with 4 metric 4 by 8 millimeter screws. Now I haven't secured this yet because, well, we'll still need to run 2 wires from the positive and the negative on here up to our Duet. So you can see this will slide in and sit nicely just like that. I'm not completely protecting it like I probably should have designed it, but I like to have access to the wires without having to take this loose first. So now the next thing we will do is mount our Duet. With your Duet, you get all your little connectors. We will need a couple of those terminals here shortly, as well as your USB cable, all your little pins. As always, a cool little powered by Duet sticker, and the how to install. There's one thing in this bag you need for putting this in place, and they are the hardest things to see in this bag. Hopefully you guys can see them on camera. There are these nice little plastic insulating washers. I don't know if that's going to really show it, so let's see. That's what they look like. Now we're going to take 4 metric 8 or metric 3 by 8 millimeter screws, along with those plastic washers. I like to make sure the board is set back, or at least flush to the front of the carriage, because you are going to be putting the handle on the front, so you don't want it sticking out past the plastic. Now here's our power connector for the board. So we need to measure the distance from here to here. Okay, now we want to find these two rather large connectors in here. Yep, good. Fits in there nice and neat. Be careful not to get too much solder on these or they won't slide up into these connectors. Now we'll get a different crimping tool for these. Now, to be honest, I'm not sure what crimping tool you're really supposed to use with these, but I don't think it really matters as long as it crimps down on that. So I'm going to use one for the same one I use for the pins. Let's go with the largest size. And they're pretty solid. And I'm going to put my other two lugs on here. Now we're going to take, I like to pick the center lug, just make sure I insulate away from everything else because I'm not using anything else on this power supply. And that's the last two wires and you run into here. Now before we hook this up to, I'm going to hook this up and I'm going to make sure I'm sitting at 24 volts before I hook it up into the Duet, because if for some reason this thing got tweaked and scrambled, I don't want to fry my Duet, even though supposedly it will go up to, I believe, 36 volts for power. We can go ahead and put these screws in now. And they take 4 more of the metric 3 by 8 millimeter. There we go. So now I just need to run a power cord to this so we can do a function test real quick and hope we don't let any black smoke out, or magic smoke out I should say. Okay, so just to be sure these things don't get cross connected, separate them with my alligator clips here. Throw the switch. No smoke so far. And it's apparently not seeing enough of a draw to even kick the power supply on, unfortunately. Alright, so after getting ready to take this apart and make sure any of the fuses were blown or anything like that, I turned it up, and lo and behold, what did I find? That little switch right there. It says 110 or 230. Or 115, I should say, or 230. Thankfully, I'm in the United States, and it being switched to 230 meant it just wasn't getting as much voltage as it was expecting, and I didn't do any damage to the power supply. Had the roles been reversed and I had been in Europe and it was set to 110, well, it would have went poof, which is probably why they send them all set to 230, so they don't go poof for the people in Europe that buy them. So, I've switched it to 110. I've already checked it, but I'll do it with you guys real quick just so you can see it. I'll pull my voltmeter out. I got it set to 200 volts DC. I'm going to turn it on. Hopefully put it here where you guys can read it. There we go. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and turn the power supply on. We have a nice green light now. On voltage negative, voltage positive. We're sitting at 24.5 volts. And I'm going to leave it at 24.5 because I'm running a lot of this wiring a very long distance. So there is going to be some current drop over the distance. And we're going to go ahead and run it at 24.5. I don't think it should be any issue for anything. We're going to run it. Right. All I need to do now is get some tape to tape this down nice and neat on top of the power supply so it doesn't move around a lot. And we're all done. So I went and got my nice pretty blue tape here. And I also did double check the voltage requirements for the Duet before I fired this up again. And it is rated anywhere from 11 to 25 volts. I may turn this thing on and then back it down to 24.3. But otherwise, I think we're pretty well set. Just need to tape this in place now. Alright, now obviously if you were going to set up a Duet board, you'd have to route this just a little bit differently. I would probably choose to bump it over here to the side and run it down the edge. But for now, since I'm only running the Duet, I think we're good there. And the last thing we need to do, because I almost forgot about it, is we need to put the handle on the front. You will need 2 metric 3 by 16 millimeter screws and 2 metric 3 washers. They go down into these holes down here in the bottom corner that line up with all the openings for the Duet. I would try to get them in there first. And then you're just going to line it up into these holes right here on the end. And be careful not to push your SD card back. I said you want to be sure your SD card is clearing nice and neat. Looks like everything's set in a good position. Go ahead and tighten these up. You see you have your openings for your Wi-Fi antenna, your SD card, and your USB port, and there's also a small little opening there for the reset button. And this is your circuit board assembly. Alright, so that wraps up today's episode. Now remember, if you like what I'm doing here, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for updates. If you'd like to help support this build or future projects, there is a PayPal me link and an Amazon wishlist link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.